We'll move to the minutes of the meeting held on the 18th of September. Gosh, it's a long time ago, isn't it? Does anybody have any issues on page... I don't know whether yours is the same number. Oh, sorry, 20th November. What am I talking about? I was thinking it was a long time ago. 20th of November. Anybody have any problems on page... Mine is 4. Is that everybody else's page number? First. Oh, it's now become page 2. That's interesting. Don't ask me why. And the second page, Armed Forces Community Covenant. No. Then we go to Draft Home Strategy. Right. And then on page 6, there was mention of the art fund and the distribution of the monies and what that was to go to. Has anybody any comments on that?
Well, I can give you an update.
That's what we would require.
Thank you very much. The art fund is being put forward to a seat that's going outside you'll see in members' connections, hopefully, seat that's going on the front of the arena, and that will have 3 faces to the seat. One face will be recognised in Armed Forces, the second face will be recognised in the Borough Council, and the third face will be recognising all the towns and parishes within the borough. Now, if you remember back in history of this group, the budget for well, what we collected from the sale of the art was £15,000, and that was supplemented by a further £10,000 from this arena project as being something that was a focal point at the front of the building. So the £25,000 budget was required to be spent here. So the solution, which was agreed by Cabinet last month, was the seat, and we hope to put it in place by May. So, and that will be on the front of the building. And that's a timber and stainless steel seat on the triangle area.
Now, has everybody seen this? A picture of it?
No.
I haven't, because it's been mentioned to IT. The pictures don't come up. I've already had a conversation today over it, but I think it's probably true for other people.
Could I add? I mean, the images are, if you I know you don't dwell on the stairs very often, but there is a screen on the stairs that has a screensaver on it, and that floats by on 5 pictures, and you can see which number it is, which shows an image of the seat and a similar seat that was in place in Southampton. The IT issue is an issue with AirWatch. Yeah. And the issue with AirWatch is that it doesn't, the current model of AirWatch is not an issue that can be resolved by IT. Right. But they're sending out images, and if you look at it in any other email browser, then you'll see the pictures. Right. But in AirWatch, it's not. So okay. It's not a member service that's sending things out. It's just the browser you're looking at that it's causing a problem. So anyone who's looking at that member's connection on a computer will see the images automatically. It's only if you're looking at it on a tablet under AirWatch that you'll miss those pictures. Apologies for that, and I know they're trying to work on it behind the scenes to make sure. And the next edition of AirWatch, for those of you who use it either on your mobile phone or tablet, will have that facility where you can turn those pictures on. It's just that edition is not rolled out yet. But the seats are there.
Can you put your microphone on? Because don't forget we're being recorded. It's behind you. That's right, behind your computer.
Sorry, did you say it was?
No, I didn't say it was agreed at Cabinet. I said it was agreed by portfolio holder. And it's not a key decision. It's not an expensive one. It was a recommendation from this group that was supported by Cabinet that the money be spent on some sculpture, piece of art that went in this building because that made use of, both the Art Fund and the £10,000 pot of money that was available for the arena. So that proposal, and over the last 6 months, that a lot of different examples have been put through, but the final design that was chosen by the portfolio holder was for a stainless steel seat, which remembers, as I say, if you have a look at it, and we are getting the more detailed designs through now, which will illustrate all the parish names that are going on one face. So it's like a cloverleaf design. So one face of it will be all the parishes. The second face, as I say, will be Rushcliffe, Great Place, Great Lifestyle, Great Sport. And the third face will be remembrance for armed forces.
Councillor Graysmith.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm not very technical, as you know, with computers and things, but surely if IT or member services or somebody knows that you get your information with the AirWatch system, then why can they not find a way, some other way of letting you see, such as the pictures? Because personally, I think it's bad when I come to a meeting and find the chair of the group hasn't seen it, and yet she's meant to talk about it.
I mean, I'm not speaking for IT, but there are various solutions that councillors can use to access email. And in today's society, you have to make sure those solutions are secure. So in terms of email, you can access your emails from your home computer, or you can log on to another computer with your secure password and get it to another computer. So if you log on to a computer, you'll see the images right. The software solution for tablets and for phones is an external solution. AirWatch, it's a national solution. A lot of councils use it because it's a secure method of protecting emails, so that if you, for instance, I lose my tablet or lose my phone, that can be cleaned off the system. And if anyone finds that, they can't access it even if they've got the password even clean. So that's why it's there. That external solution. I tested it and I forwarded it onto my Apple email and all the pictures emerge. But on the AirWatch, which is the secure solution, it's they're not there at the minute. We are on the case, but I can't, because it's a national solution, I can't give you a solution to that overnight. But they are looking at the next model up and see if that's secure enough to roll that out, which will solve that problem. But you can access the pictures, Councillor Greenwood, you can access them. And even on AirWatch, you can. What Councillor Greenwood said was, what you get is 10 attachments, and you then have to, if you look at the article on your email, it says image 2. You have to go to the attachment and look at image 2 and you get a full picture. Now you don't want to do, I know you don't want to do that because you want to read it as a newsletter, so you can read it and it just flows. But you can access it. It's not the ideal solution at the moment, it's only just been picked up. So, and I certainly get round that, but I know it can be frustrating. As a lot of IT can be.
If I can just say then, in this situation, if we send an email out to people saying it is there, and I know we're trying to cut back on paper and everything else, would not want a 4 sheet of paper in members' room with a picture on be a benefit to everybody?
We're trying to do one solution for all, and I take that point, and we'll look at how that can improve, but we are trying to solve that one. And it hasn't been picked up. This solution has been on the market for quite some time now. It's only just been picked up as an issue. So I was aware of it. But...
Right. Oh, Councillor Edwards.
Thank you. It's the first time I've heard the detailed description of the seat and what's going to be on it. And welcome the information that all the parishes are on there. Presumably West Bridgeford will be on there as well, even though it isn't a parish.
We're very clear, we're not calling it parishes, we're calling it communities, and I've got Derek and his team have been working on it. So yes, it has got West Bridgeford, it has got Edwalton on it. There are some that are more parish type names, and but we've gone through as best we can to check all the spelling and the wording and before it goes to manufacture. But no, certainly
So
West
it's all
Bridgeford,
inclusive.
certainly Edwalton are
Good.
on there.
Councillor Donoghue? Oh, right. Okay. Right, well I think we've done that now. So that brings us to the end of the minutes and onto the action sheet. I think, is this an update or?
I think when the apologies, when the agenda went out, we hadn't got all the answers on the answer sheet. So you've got in your agenda, you've got a blank. You haven't got the answers where you would normally have them. So on the sheet in front of you, you have the 4 actions with an update on the comments from the respective manager.
Can we just peruse this to begin with? So, has everybody read that? And those all sound positive responses. So I think we agree the minutes, and you want me to initial every page of these?
Yes.
Both sides, is it? Right. You all right? Okay. So that moves us on to the next item, which is item 4, report on diversity in Rushcliffe, focusing on dementia. I have to say, I at first queried why we were doing this when this is delivered by the County Council. But what we're looking at really is the impact on the services that we as a borough deliver, and considering the implications of that. So we're going to have a report, I believe, from Alex.
And I'll introduce Alex, who has a short presentation, just cover what we have done and what we plan to do.
Okay, thank you, Derek. Hand over to you two.
Thank you. So this follows the Community Development Scrutiny Group in September, where we looked at overall diversity in Rushcliffe and then focusing in on health inequalities. The group requested more information on the prevalence of dementia across the borough. Because of that presentation, it was clear that it is an emergent focus for the authority and how we cater for that community. The information that is in the presentation this evening is taken from the Nottinghamshire Joint Strategic Needs Assessment and from the Rushcliffe Clinical Commissioning Group's annual report. We've appended a huge amount of information if you wanted to go through that. But the reason that we did that was just to give you a flavour of how involved it is. The reason that we're bringing this evening is to align with the Equality Framework objectives, ensuring equitable access to services for residents with dementia. And the accompanying presentation will focus on responsive services and customer care in relation to enabling residents to live well with dementia. So what the Borough Council has got a role to play and what we're doing to tackle the issue in terms of the services that we promote. The presentation will focus on how the authority takes account of what the data tells us, so the information that's coming down, and will provide some practical examples at an operational level of the key decision makers and how we've directed frontline services accordingly to meet the needs. And that all links back to the diversity of Rushcliffe and how we are signposts in delivering our services to meet the needs of that community by understanding the data in terms of what diversity looks like in the borough. So I'm going to pass over to Alex to do a whistle-stop tour of what dementia looks like in Rushcliffe, some of the actions that we've undertaken and some of the actions that we are planning to take in the coming months.
Okay. Thank you, Derek. Chair, I think you make a really good point at the start about whose sort of responsibility this sits with in terms of that support with dementia. This is a slide I try and show as many people as possible. It is effectively what makes us healthy, what influences our health. And ultimately, it's not just about the choices we make as individuals, it's much more about our surroundings, our circumstances. And as a local authority, as a district and borough council, we have significant powers, significant levers to be able to influence some of this and really positively influence, in this case, people with dementia and how we can support them to live well. So I suppose just taking you through this journey, we've got things such as good work, the surroundings, money and resources, our housing, access to healthy food. Obviously, education isn't necessarily something that we deal with, but it obviously something communities and providing that sort of local activity for people with dementia to be able to live well. That is something that we'd be able to contribute towards. So I believe I showed you this slide last time. So this really sort of emphasises the scale of the challenge. So as you can see, heart disease is still the leading cause of death for males. So this is what this slide's representing. In females, the leading cause of death has now become dementia. And in a few years' time, it is expected that this will be replicated for males as well. So this slide really shows the difference between a healthy brain and a brain with Alzheimer's disease. So Alzheimer's disease is just one type of dementia, but as you can see, there's significant sort of shrinkages across the brain, and what this tends to do is, a particular case in terms of how people can die from this, is this causes pneumonia, and people often tend to die because of the pneumonia, but the cause is because of dementia and what it does to the brain, as you can see there. Okay, so again, just to touch on the scale of the challenge, there's some really impressive numbers here. I'll read a couple of them out. So 1 million people in the UK will have dementia by 2025, and this will increase to 2 million by 2050. Dementia has higher health and social care costs than cancer and chronic heart disease combined. That is quite a staggering figure. One of the things that we really try and emphasise here is that this covers unpaid care costs as well. So if you think about all the care and responsibilities that are associated with dementia, it is significant, and that's why it outweighs there. And as you can see, the current cost of dementia in the UK is 26 billion. And on the next slide, we'll come on to specific examples in Rushcliffe and how this is affecting residents in the borough. So currently we are aware that 1% of Rushcliffe residents have dementia. Around 5% of those residents that are 65 plus have the disease. But as you can see, the dementia diagnosis rate in the UK was 66%. So what that means is that we're aware of 66% of those that actually have dementia, whereas, as you can see, the actual number estimated in the borough is closer to 1,700, or 1,760, because not all those with dementia have a diagnosis. And again, this is about sort of our responsibility in terms of raising that awareness and supporting individuals to access support. The other thing I just wanted to highlight, again, I appreciate, I think I showed this in the last presentation, but the fact that we do have an ageing population in the borough. We have 15.6% greater proportion of 65-year-olds, which does present a slightly different challenge for us within Rushcliffe. Okay, so as Derek mentioned, we really wanted to touch on some of the things we've done to try and improve those residents who are living with dementia alongside their carers as well. So we've delivered 15 dementia-friendly sessions specifically to GP practices. So this is about trying to make them dementia-friendly, to try and improve the environment that they come into, where it isn't necessarily lots of posters that's really distracting, but trying to make it succinct as possible. We've delivered 5 dementia sessions to local community groups. We also delivered the Rushcliffe Memory Walk. We raised over £3,000 for Alzheimer's Society. We also delivered a Dementia Friend session to some counsellors, the Leadership Forum and to Leisure Centre staff. We also have one planned for the Customer Contact Centre as well. We've supported Cutgrave Leisure Centre to set up dementia-friendly swimming, and pending the success of that, we may look at bringing it to Rushcliffe Arena as well. And finally, we've connected with a lot of dementia CAFs to try and understand their challenge. Today I was at the Forget Me Nots programme that runs at Trent Bridge, just to see sort of the residents' experiences of that and how that run and how that can be sustained. So this just highlights some of the a visual image of some of the action that we've done. I just wanted to briefly show you that to make a change from the writing. And here are some of the actions that we will be doing moving forward. So right in this very room, we'll be hosting a Dementia Action event on Friday the 24th of May to really sort of bring in and really raise the profile to residents about what's available in the borough and locally, both provided by the Borough Council, our partners and the CCG. It is a multi-agency event. It will involve lots of partners from across sort of health, social care, voluntary services, academia, etc. We're also planning a delivery of a dementia-friendly group at a local eco-farm in Screveton, so working with a local business there to really try and help engage people with dementia and their carers to sort of engage in both sort of growing foods but also animal therapy as well. Moving on, we're also going to be exploring an opportunity to work with care homes. So I was at a care home today, looking at how we can deliver physical activity in a safe environment, both within the care home and outside of it as well. And I just mentioned Engage there. Engage is the falls prevention programme that's available throughout the borough. Okay. So because of this work and because of the work that we plan to do, we have committed to an action plan. And following this action plan, it's been reviewed by Alzheimer's Society, and we have been recently accredited as working to become a dementia-friendly borough. So we can never become purely dementia-friendly because the Alzheimer's Society very much want the focus to be on working, and it isn't a one-stop shop. There's no completion. So we've been accredited as this, and I suppose moving forward, these are some of the outcomes that we potentially look to build on in terms of what we can do to, again, make sure we're a dementia-friendly borough and help residents to live well with the disease. So just to review some of those, as part of the Dementia Action event, we're going to be supporting local businesses to become more dementia-friendly on our high streets, ensuring that activities are inclusive for people with dementia as well as those that are specific for people with dementia. There's obviously lots of different concepts there that really try and cover what, as a borough council, we can influence. And that is my presentation. Thank you very much for listening. Any questions at all?
Just trying to read all the way around.
Just took it back, yeah, sorry.
So I suppose the emphasis is that it's a whole systems approach in terms of the wider determinants of health. Every aspect has an aspect.
Can you press your thing?
Sorry. Yeah, sorry, just to recap, it's a whole systems approach in terms of the wider determinants of health, because with an ageing population, dementia is going to become more prevalent in the borough, and we have to be proactive in the actions that we're taking to address those. So Alex has made a fantastic start in the work that we've done with the commitment of the borough and the senior leadership, and it's about continuing to deliver those and embed those as norms, so that when somebody comes to the customer service centre, for example, and they're showing signs of dementia, the staff has brief intervention advice so that they have an understanding of their needs, so that they're better able to serve their needs, so that those people can live an independent life for as long as possible.
If I could say, prevention's better than cure, but of course we don't know what causes dementia. But we do know, or we have been led to believe, that obviously exercising the brain, socialising, these things help. So what we need to be doing is ensuring there is access to education, U3 age, that sort of thing, and that we have got access to areas for exercising. I've forgotten what they call it, the Murga, isn't it? Is it? Mugger, yes. And we should be looking to provide more areas like that where adults can exercise and encouraging that. Because like I say, we don't know what causes it, but at least it would lead towards a healthy lifestyle. You said something about exploring opportunities to engage with the care homes. How are we looking to explore those opportunities, and what money have we put aside in order to do that?
Okay. For this specific example, we're looking to work with care and residential homes to provide them with a physical activity offer for their activity coordinators. So every residential home in the borough, depending on their size, has an activity coordinator where they come up with a timetable of lots of different activities. For this specific programme, we have been able to work with our partners in Active Knots. They're going to cover some funding for training. So Active Knots are the county sports provider. They're providing the provision of free training for activity coordinators to enable them to give them the confidence to be able to deliver physical activity in the care home. And then following on from that, we're also supporting with equipment and also potentially mentoring them following that as a one-off session. And this will potentially be coming from the sports development budget, working with my colleague Amy Carter to be able to deliver this as a project.
Right.
We're also partnering with Ashfield District Council because they're looking to do something similar as well.
Right. And this will be delivered in all residential care homes, whether they be private or whether they be state.
So at the moment, obviously with my connection to the CCG, I was able to sort of put out a taster for interest, if you like, and several care homes or residential homes have come back. Obviously pending that success or not success, we'll look at sort of reviewing that moving forward as to whether it's a continual offer for all the care homes.
Okay. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, and thank you for that presentation. I learned a lot from that,
Yeah.
and I'm one of a group, I think of a few of us around the table, for whom this is an issue that we may face in the nearer future than some others of you.
Never.
But on a serious note, I've been thinking, you've been talking about having a number of events, and that's good. I've been thinking about the occasions when the Borough Council staff engage with people who have some form of dementia, and it's a great sliding scale. There are two groups in particular, I think. Those are the people in the contact centres, and secondly, everybody in the borough has some contact with the bin men once a week. And I'm wondering just what work is being done with within the council, with their own staff, in helping people like that. The other group, of course, that can from time to time come into contact with people with dementia are ourselves. We can get rung up by people who clearly are suffering. And therefore, I'd be interested to hear what is being done along those lines.
Okay, thank you. Really, really important question. I think obviously we want to make sure that our frontline staff are supported and prepared to be in the best possible position to support those with dementia. I think I briefly mentioned that we have planned a Dementia Friends session to the customer contact centre. Yes, no, you make a really good point about the I think the refuse staff as to what we can do to deliver a Dementia Friends session to those, and obviously the offer will be open to any other sort of community groups and obviously councillors yourselves to undergo the training. It's a really brief, but it's a really sort of informative training. We delivered it to the leadership forum. It just really sort of gauges interest, gauges awareness of the disease and what we can do as a community together to try and help those to live well with dementia.
Yeah, we did do some member training, which was attended by some, but we plan to do that in the future as well. In terms of obviously after May.
I haven't put you.
Yeah, sorry. After May, we'll plan to run that again.
Thank you. Somebody. Oh, I'm aware that I'd seen something, but I wasn't sure who it was. Councillor Cup, can you put your microphone on?
You have made regarding prevention is important because we know very little, but we do know that sleep is connected. Lack of sleep is linked to dementia. We also know healthy, living style. So I think it's so important, really, that there is something on prevention and improving, education, and so that people can, be aware that a living, healthy lifestyle, and as you grow old, people grow old, the sleep also becomes a problem, and of course, what general practitioners do when people like us over 65 say, I've got a sleep problem. So, because you only get 10 minutes with a GP, so the easiest thing to do is to prescribe pills, right? And most of these pills for sleeping tablets, most of them, virtually all of them, they're linked with the memory loss. And that's well known. So you get this circle. I think in terms of research, if I can make this point, I've been associated with research now for about 11 years, assisting Aberdeen University with the development of a new drug for dementia. We are into phase 2 now, which is a phase 2 of clinical trials. But many drugs have died in phase 3 because we can't differentiate between the effect of the placebo, because with dementia, placebo sometimes has a very pronounced effect. And the reason for that is that when people are diagnosed with dementia, they start making lists. And when they start making lists, the memory tends to improve. So therefore, if you're on the drug versus the placebo, so with placebo the memory improves because the people that's called cognitive reserve. Therefore, because you can't demonstrate difference between the placebo and the active, it's a graveyard for research, because you can't differentiate, which is the other thing, but you have to demonstrate the difference. So it's a very difficult area. I know one person who, in my previous life, worked, and he said, one area I will never work on is dementia, because you spend all your life, and the drugs you develop, they die in phase 3. So it's an incredibly difficult area. We need some fresh thinking. The thinking, this group I'm involved in is very reasonable, but as I said, it's a difficult area.
Saying that sleep and obviously noise affects sleep, therefore this must feed into planning when we're considering space between accommodation, how we put the accommodation together, road structure, etc. So I think we need to be very aware of it when we're actually thinking about planning applications.
Sleep is just sleep
I
is
thought you were
linked
going to make a comment.
I was to make a
Yes,
comment. I think that is a very good point, and as Alex and Derek will know, we have a workshop here tomorrow looking at designing healthy housing estates. And it's a pilot workshop across Nottinghamshire. The Nottinghamshire County Council have been promoting a self-assessment. So any estate lands on our doormat to be assessed, we should assess it against a health assessment. We actually tried to get that assessment lodged into our local plan part 2 as a requirement on all developers to deliver it, and the feedback coming back from that is that they don't think it should be a requirement, it should be advisory. And so tomorrow's workshop with planners that Alex again will be supporting is about trying to work with our planners. Well, how can we turn that advisory into a really positive proactive, yes. But I mean, Alex is one person. This is the whole dementia, as Councillor Carr mentioned, is a partnership. We're only one element in it. But I think what we do sometimes, we undersell the work as a borough council. We do it as the environment you're living in, and spotting it. And I know you've seen my badge if you've got one. I was on the management forum when we had the dementia friendly session, and it was just like little things that you can do to spot someone who's struggling with dementia, or change the environment just slightly so it makes it more friendly for people to come into. And those little things lodge with you. So I think that's if you can raise that awareness, it helps. And in each of your communities, if you take that 1,760, if you look at each of your communities, you're going to have 50, 60, 70 people within your ward who are suffering from dementia. So it's not.
And if I can just say, the meeting you're talking about tomorrow and thinking about the environments we're building, going back to the noise, but linking into our next item, trees baffle noise. So we need to make sure that we're building in a tree belt around housing. Right. Councillor Greenwood.
Thank you, Chair. It's just picking up really on other things that you've been saying. Very quickly, dementia came to my neighbour, and he was only saying today, please, I don't want to go on night shift tonight, because he has a fear of sleep. For some reason, night times are very bad, and I can lay at night, if I happen to be awake, I can hear him pacing up and down.
Oh dear.
So coming back to buildings, it does have an effect. Ours are sort of the older 60s houses with walls that are quite thin. But it does have an effect, not just on them, on neighbouring properties. Also training for people so they're aware. He did go missing one morning. I got up to find a police car outside, and he'd actually walked from Ruddington to Clifton, because that's where his daughter lives. And then he got somehow from Clifton to Wilford to the co-op. And like 7:30 in the morning, he walked in and asked for 2 cod. And they said, beg your pardon? I want my fish. I've come for my fish. And they, because they were trained, they picked up straight away. They tried to coerce him into the back room, make him a cup of tea, phone the police, and he got back home very safely. So from that as well, the neighbours have also been advised to fit an alarm on the door. So although they keep, especially the front door locked and the side gate locked, if he did find the key to try and get out, the alarm would go. And I think that is very important, because whoever you might be living with, it's all right doing this in care homes, but when you're in your own private home, you turn your back for 2 minutes and they're out of the door and gone. I think it is, a lot of it, is very important. And say I see it first hand every day. So,
Alex.
Thank you. 2 points I really want to make. I think in the dementia action event that we have got here, the police will be coming along, and they will be coming along to talk about a programme they have called Pegasus. So Pegasus is an online programme that we as the local community can work with others in our community to highlight that individual has dementia to the police, so that when they get a call, they sort of instantly recognise that person does have dementia, and that they know where they live, if they find them on sort of walking like you just mentioned, and we'll have sort of a very brief talk on that during that event. I'll be happy to share sort of further information on that as well. And secondly, just coming back to, I suppose, both Dave and the Chair's point about sort of partnership. Yes, like you mentioned, as a borough council, we're not going to be doing everything on there. We can't do what the NHS does. So it's really about how we can utilise our partners and work with both public health at the county council and the CCG locally to really try and have an impact on what we're trying to achieve.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions? Oh, Councillor Stockton.
Thank you very much. So you started the meeting by saying you had 1,160 people with dementia. How many of those people will be helped within the next 12 months? How many will be helped within 24 months? How many will be helped within 36 months? Each time we ask a question, you say, oh yes, there is an action to do that and address that aspect. Can we see the whole action plan then, which spells out all the actions that have been taken, so that we would then know which actions are being taken, how many people they will be looking to help, and what the timescale for action is for that action? Wouldn't the actual action sheet of the things we're doing be helpful to councillors rather than the data reports? So I'd very much like to know what are the actual outcomes of this meeting in terms of what are, having scrutinised it, what additional outcomes have we achieved based on what were additional outcomes were planned anyway before the meeting occurred. Thank you.
Okay, I'll give that one a go. So I suppose we briefly sort of touched on both sort of what we've done and what we have planned for the future in terms of sort of the outcomes that you mentioned. In particular, I think you mentioned about how often a person would be seen or supported by, well, from that I assume you're sort of referring to potentially a carer or a GP practice in terms of sort of the regularity of that, because as a borough council, as we mentioned, we're really trying to make sure that we make a dementia-friendly environment, and that's not necessarily about individual sort of caring support, but more about sort of the activities that we have available for residents in the borough.
Of course. So you're going to run an eco farm programme. How many people are going to participate in the eco farm programme each year? What's your target? And so that we can come back and at some point, somebody in the future can say, did that programme reach a lot of people across the whole borough, or did it just reach 10 people who lived next to the eco farm? How are we measuring that, and where's the outcomes of the things we are going to do as a borough council?
Okay, I'll be more than happy to pass on the action plan to all the councillors here. In particular, with the eco farm example, we have received some funding from Public Health to focus on the food environment, and that is largely around how we can reduce obesity by promoting healthy and sustainable food to the public, and that is largely around sort of equity of access to food, and also for people's access to healthy food activities like growing food, like connecting to their local farms. So in terms of that equity of access, we really want to support those individuals with dementia, and for that specific example, we want 20 people to be able to go through that every 12 weeks. So it's like a 12-week course. However, I'm happy to provide further details of that in a spreadsheet or in the action plan that we have.
Thank you.
Just to add to Alex's point as well, we know so 1,160 people have treatment plans, and there's a programme known, I suppose, with greater awareness, is to try and, if we extrapolate the data in terms of the 1,760 figure, it's to try and, the more we know, the more people will have a treatment plan in place, they will have carers, they will know about the community, and with greater awareness, it means that percentage is higher. So the more work we do in terms of awareness around dementia, the better we are able to provide for that community. So it's about closing that data gap as well.
So you're saying, Alex, you'll be able to find some figures which we can measure the success or whatever of these projects?
Yes, absolutely. Obviously, as part of sort of our health partnership, which is a lot of this work is driven by, we have, I suppose, exactly that in terms of outcomes, actions, which we're more than happy to provide.
Because I'm assuming we're talking about proposals that are in the making. They aren't actually, the eco farm isn't actually operating fully yet.
Yeah.
So what are we saying? That you'd be able to come back to us in 6 months, 12 months' time?
Well, I suppose we'd be more than happy to sort of send you our projections in terms of what we'd like from the local eco farm in terms of the deliverables. However, again, I would be more than happy to update the scrutiny group if you'd appreciate that and if you think that would be worthwhile.
And does the same apply to, you said exploring opportunities to engage with care homes? Are we just starting out on that, or have we been doing that for some time?
So that project's very much in its infancy. Again, I was actually at a care home today. So at the moment we're scouting out. We've spoken to 4 care homes at the moment. We've planned a date for the training session here, which will be mid to late March. I can't think of the exact date. But again, happy to provide an update on both the actions, outcomes, and to the group.
I think that would be very good if we could get updates like that. We could feed that out to the community.
Sure.
Apologies to come in that. Just a reminder, this is the second time Alex has been to this group, and at the first meeting and remembering Alex is a part-time officer, he's one of the only officers in the county who was working for the CCG for half his time and for ourselves half his time. So put it in context, 2.5 days, 2 days a week here. I think we get a lot of the other areas that Alex is working on as well is drink and drug related, obesity, and a lot of activities. So there's an overall action plan that, and in fact this Thursday I'm sitting on a Rushcliffe Health Partnership, and Alex's task is to make sure that Rushcliffe gets its fair share and highlights the problem. So yes, we can gather a lot of the data, but I'm just trying to put it in context. You asked for this item to come back. It's one of quite a few items that we are dealing with in a very limited way. So I don't want to spend all this time on gathering and it's putting it in context. But certainly get there.
And while you mention that the other areas that Alex is working on, there's an area that I feel that we should be looking at in Rushcliffe, and that is mental health among the young. There's been rather a lot about it in the press recently, and I think that maybe we should be looking at how we deal with it.
If I can say, moving forward, I think it's helpful for the group or the future group, whatever it may be, to identify what the purpose is for the scrutiny, so that it can then you can get a position statement where we currently stand, what actions we're doing, whether they're sufficient, whether the scrutiny group would require any more. I see this one, and the last one was an information session to say, look, this is the problem we've got in the area. Are you aware of it? Is there anything you think we can do? It's not going to be answer all your questions, but so if there's a specific issue coming up, and I agree, mental health in its whole, not just young people, is an issue. Then it should. But why are we bringing it in? What are we trying to solve? And is this the best forum to do it, or is the best forum the Health and Wellbeing Board or the CCG? So it's the clarity of what we're trying to bring. Our Sport Council Stockwood. What is the item here for? What are we trying to achieve? And then you when you leave the meeting, well, you've added to that. I've picked up on here. We'll certainly send off the information about the actions. But one of the actions that we've probably skipped over is encouraging your colleagues who haven't attended the event to attend the event.
Absolutely.
And because you are frontline, you're meeting the community, you can see that. So I think, if nothing else, we're raising the awareness, and that's the whole thing about this dementia friendly. It's raising awareness is our key role, and understanding it across the board. Not easy to measure. As Alex said, you don't come into contact with those 1,760. You come into contact with 100,000 and try and make them aware. So,
I mean, if we can get information, not quite the report that you've given, but a very condensed form of that we could communicate to our residents. I do communicate regularly, and in fact there's a memory cafe in Cockgrave which I communicated about fairly recently. So the more information you can give to us via
Members Connection as well.
I can't remember what it's called again.
Members Connection.
It's not.
Councillors
Connection. That's where, you see, that's where I get confused.
Usually we're members monthly or members weekly.
That's right. The more information you can keep giving us, the better. so that we can disseminate it. Right.
One more question.
Oh, is there one more question? Oh, Councillor Bushman.
I can understand what Councillor Stopwood was talking about and what he was expecting. And when you actually outlined the plan and what you have actually done and what you haven't done, it appears to me that the only way you're going to answer that is to go to other agencies who are probably already doing exactly the same thing as has been asked. Now, don't you think there's a possibility of what has been asked of you, or what you are actually doing, is duplicating all this information from other agencies because you've been asked to by us?
I suppose the point is the role of health is a partnership approach. So the reason that we are working together is so that to avoid duplication. So dementia is a burden on public health and is going, and the data that we've taken from this report in terms of the overall objective of the scrutiny is diversity in Rushcliffe shows that dementia is going to be a problem in the future for Rushcliffe residents, and we are working with all our partners, so the Fire and Rescue Service, Health, Police, the Alzheimer's Society, to ensure that we have a coordinated approach. So the work that Alex has identified is to raise awareness throughout the borough of the issues that are raised with dementia, and I suppose it's our primary role in here in terms of we can only do a limited number of interventions with the resources available to us. Our role is to raise the awareness as best we can to ensure that we have as many people as possible trained to tackle dementia and to make sure that as many people have diagnosis as possible so that they've got a treatment plan in place. And if we're successful in that, we will have significantly improved the residents' quality of life for our residents. So I suppose to answer your question, the reason that we're doing it, the reason to do this is to make sure that we are coordinated and to avoid duplication instead of duplicating because somebody else is doing it.
See, that's the second time I've heard that word, coordinated. And if that's what it's about, I think that's a very good idea, because everybody in every agency will then get to know what each other are doing. And we all end up with the same, hopefully, information. Dementia is going to be bad, and I and Councillor Edwards obviously got some problems over that. Because we'll probably be at the front of the queue. Yes, the coordination, I like that. That was, you said that twice, coordinated. I like that, it's very good. That is what I would expect you to do. And I agree with what John Stopwood said with regards to how you're going to do it, this, that and the other. Well, you've answered that. Thank you very much.
Quick point.
Councillor Khan.
Quick
Well,
point.
the last question.
I think this is your role, Chair, but overall I think I can sympathise with Dave because our role here is quite limited as Rushcliffe Borough Council. Resources are limited, right? And there are so many other players involved, and therefore we have to be just careful, that we remain within our role. And it is, and for example, there are lots of commitments. Encourage companies to invest. I mean, how do you encourage companies to invest? I mean, it's when I've been in this field for 40 years, I would still have to find out how do you encourage companies, because companies are there to make profit at the end of the day. And it costs something like $1 billion to develop a new drug. So it's needless to say, our role is limited, and we have to. I can see the officers will have to remain within their primary role.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
But so long as we are aware, and that's what it's about, I think, awareness. No use burying your head in the sand. As long as we're aware and we are making others aware, then we're going some way towards dealing with the issue. So I think recommendation here was to consider and endorse the report and the actions taken by officers. I think we're all in agreement. We've done that. And we move on to our next item, which is item number 5, tree protection and promotion in Rushcliffe. Thank you very much, Mr. Hayden. And I don't know Alex's surname.
Julian.
Oh, Julian. Right. Thank you.
I think, Chair, you're in danger of starting to join Councillor Bushman.
You're sitting over there.
Oh dear.
But I am aware enough not to press this so it's not recorded.
Well, these are all. Touche. That's one each.
I'll remember. Right, we're moving on to our next item, and we now have, as one might say, in the chair, Paul Phillips and Tom Pettit, who are going to talk to us about trees.
Right. Thank you for inviting me back. I came and spoke to you in November 2017 and we discussed initiative to plant trees across Rushcliffe, which you approved, and then that went to Cabinet, and Cabinet approved it and approved a budget to go along with it. So now I've come back to update you on the work that we've done so far towards implementing that initiative. Tom's come along as well, so that if you've got any specific questions that is his area of expertise, he will be able to answer those. So the initiative was split into a number of different areas. One of the areas was under a broad heading of enforcement, and tree preservation orders was something that was required within it. Training for tree preservation orders was delivered to the Town and Parish Forum in November 2017. Tom provided that training. Another area is in the local plan to embed within that tree policies to ensure that when planning is going ahead, trees are taken into account. There is a tree policy that has been written in the draft local plan, which, as you should be aware, has been scrutinised, and we hopefully will be able to go forward with taking that forward in the very near future. One of the other suggestions within the initiative was to include within the community infrastructure levy an ability to take money for use for tree planting. I have been advised by planning that at this time green infrastructure in general is not deemed as suitable for inclusion within the community infrastructure levy, so that has not gone forward any further. One part of the initiative is to publicise trees, and there has been a number of different articles and press releases done by the media team here at the council. We also have a web page which needs continual updating, but there is a web page on trees and funding and advice, and that's available on the council's website. We have press releases that have gone out in West Bridgford Wire and the Nottingham Evening Post. It's also been publicised through Members Matter, through Rushcliffe Reports. Sorry, I'm thinking about what you were saying earlier. So the articles have gone into Rushcliffe Reports spring, summer and autumn, and there's been quite a lot of interest in that. And we also had a lot of interest on social media, in particular when we were running some of the schemes that I'll be talking about in just a moment for tree planting. there was a very lot of interest, and we had thousands and thousands of people following what was going on. And it was actually our biggest social media news item in last year, was trees. So that has been very successful. We were very pleased with that. So coming on to the tree schemes, obviously we need to actually put some trees in the ground as well. And we had 2 tree schemes that went forward. We had a residence tree scheme, which gave out 3 trees to residents in Rushcliffe. We chose 2 trees to be within that, which was the field maple and the wild cherry. We asked in the summer for residents to apply for trees, and we actually had quite a high take-up of that. We actually had a higher take-up than actually people came to collect them, unfortunately. So there was a lot of people applied, and about a third didn't actually come and collect the trees that they'd ordered. So we ordered the trees in, and so we actually had quite a large number left at the end of it. But we did issue 391 field maple and 457 wild cherry, which was a good start. Perhaps not quite as good as we might have hoped, but it was a good start. And hopefully, what I didn't just say, of course, is it's a 3-year programme. So the plan is we will be doing this again this coming summer and autumn, giving out trees again, and hopefully we'll get a higher uptake, as people have said what a good scheme it was. We also offered trees to parishes. This is being delivered actually by Streetwise, and is still just at its final stages for this year. So there are some that haven't yet been planted, or are they're either due to be planted last week or this week. So it's not completed quite yet, but we expect it to be in excess of 221 trees for this year, planted across the parishes and in 13 of the parishes. Again, they were invited in the summer to apply for trees, and as I said, we had 13 parishes actually apply this year for the scheme. Again, we'll be running it next in the coming year, and therefore we hope to get more parishes on board, which may be giving them more time to work out where they're going to put the trees and who to work with for it. We had some really great public comments. Just a few of them I've put on there. Thank you for this great idea. Brilliant idea. Fantastic idea. There's one in there that is a slight learning point. We had one person who said the trees that we'd chosen were too tall, so there is learning to take from this scheme this year. In addition, some of the parishes didn't know about the resident scheme. They knew about the parish scheme, but they didn't know about the resident scheme, so they didn't actually promote it as much as they might have done if they'd known about it. So that's another learning point, to make sure that we actually take that on board for next year. So some really good points made. Tree Wardens is another activity which was within the initiative. At this moment in time, we haven't got it set up. I've been working with the Tree Council because they're going to come up and help us get the initiative off the ground, and the first meeting for Tree Wardens is planned for April 2019. So, and a letter went out 2 weeks ago to the parishes to invite them to recommend people to go to be trained as tree wardens. So it is going ahead, but we haven't quite got there. We're a little bit behind where I'd hoped to be, but it is going ahead. A recent thing that has come up is the government has actually opened a consultation it's automatically moving on. I don't quite know why. The government has opened a consultation into street trees, particularly in urban areas. And again, Tom is going to do a response to this. There's 4 areas within the consultation. It includes felling street trees, and basically it's putting extra powers in place and controls in place to prevent street trees being taken down, largely in response to the events in the news that were in Sheffield, where they were taking out large numbers of trees. And we feel that actually the powers aren't needed. There are powers already in place, so we're not actually saying that we need more to be able to control that. Reporting of tree felling and replanting. They were put very stringent, the suggestions are very stringent measuring of the number of trees felled and replanted, which is fine. We can easily do that with the trees that we're planting, but it's almost impossible to know how many trees on a planning application. With some planning applications, you have a specific number, but on some, they do, we're going to plant over an area. Well, how many trees is going to be planted in that area? It's a lot harder to actually make that. So we don't accept that that is actually a feasible thing to say exactly how many trees are going to be planted. It's also recommending that all local authorities have trees and woodland strategies. Well, as I explained this, I think last time I came, that we feel that we have actually already done that, but not called it a tree strategy. It is part of our nature conservation strategy, which has specific tree objectives within it. And also, of course, we have the local plan part 2, which I've just mentioned. There are policies within that. And so a tree strategy will actually only be bringing back together what we've already got in other documents already. So we don't feel that there is a need for us to have a tree strategy. There's also a recommendation for additional powers for the Forestry Commission, which, I mean, that's out of our remit. It's so we don't feel that it's our place to make a comment on that at this time. So it's just to inform you, this is going on, and you thought it might be of interest to you to know where we're going with that. That is the end of the presentation, and if you welcome any questions. There are, well, it can be, yes. I mean, there are no